And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes from the unceded and traditional territory of the Tsimshian people. BC was the first Western province to begin establishing provincial parks, beginning with Vancouver Island's Strathcona Provincial Park in 1911. By 1930, 13 provincial parks were set aside and another 50 areas were reserved for pleasure and recreation of the public. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1992.
The Babine Mountains, majestically situated in British Columbia's northwest. It's been said throughout the years that the Babines are a playground for the public. That statement is, of course, far-reaching, encompassing everything that can be interpreted as a playground itself. From the simple enjoyment of nature at its finest, with an appreciation of environmental splendor, to the definition of recreation, combining sport with the great outdoors. The two don't necessarily mix, but with appropriate application, it could happen. Well, that, in essence, is the goal of BC Parks, who, with the help of a study group, have drafted a master plan to determine exactly how the Babines recreation area will be used for years to come.
Under the Park Act, horses and mountain bikes and snowmobiles aren't permitted unless we designate or zone an area, and that's what the public process with the master plan is all about. So we've opened some areas, some designated areas for use. And there are going to be other areas, other trails that we're going to say only certain times of the year, and you'll have to check with us first. The trail is going to be able to stand up to the impact. We want to provide the opportunities for everyone, but there are some uses, like a horse use or a mountain bike use, that can do some major damage on the trail, the same as hiking can if the conditions are poor. So what we're trying to do is protect the environment first and allow for some recreation. One of the real advantages of this type of public process is because a lot more people buy into it. We've had about 25 people in the study team who are going to be out there saying, this is how we got to it. I may not agree with everything in the plan, but I agree with the process, is what we've been hearing from everybody that we talk to. We'll have more than just parks saying that this is how we got to it. There's a lot of people in the public, hundreds in the public, that have been involved and are going to feel some sense of ownership, not just of the Babines, but of the master plan. And basically the master plan is our management guidelines. It gives us some goalposts to work within of how to manage the area.
It's easy to see why the Babines have attracted so much attention. User groups have, and rightly so, a distinct interest in the area's future. With that, a public meeting in February provided a playing field for those groups to profile their feelings and intentions. A crowd closing in on 400 came together in Smithers to set the stage. DeHart, BC Parks cohort Ken Zimmer, and Smithers Mayor Jim Davidson acted as front table officials as the speakers started to take the podium.
The reason I think this particular process was quite significant and different from many others in that Parks, I think, succeeded well in involving the range of interests and taking all views into consideration. Now this means that decisions involving compromises between differing legitimate interests are made. From the point of view of my values, acceptance of this plan involves considerable personal compromise, because personally, I consider hunting and mechanized recreation to be incompatible in a wildland park. However, I have to agree that the draft master plan is fair because it accommodates those activities which are part of the historic use of the area and are important to many people.
We feel strongly that it should be a multi-use recreation area. That way it doesn't say that you can't go, or you can't go, or I can't go. Everybody can go.
We did not get all that we asked for. However, we realized that if we got exactly what we wanted, then other users of the area would lose out. In a small, closely knit community like ours, we feel some compromise in the use of the area is necessary if we all are to get along. We strongly support a review of the boundaries of the existing recreation area.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. During the Great Depression, the government had to find ways to cope with rising tide of unemployed. Forest work camps were established throughout BC in lands set aside as parks, where the demand for roads, trails, and visitor facilities was evident. Let us return our archives to hear some of the concerns in the Babine recreational area.
While those projecting environmental concerns and the other major players, the snowmobile enthusiasts, traded speaking opportunities, it became abundantly clear those involved with the motorized sport felt they had the most to lose from projected boundary changes in the master plan. The draft master plan projects new boundaries for motorized vehicle use. Of course, rules mean very little without enforcement. That's a consideration BC Parks will have to explore should the draft plan become reality.
What we've typically done in the past, and I can use the all-terrain vehicles as an example because that's one we've been dealing with ongoing. If an area is closed or designated to a certain spot in the recreation area, we rely on the public a lot to help us out. We start off with an education information approach. We'll get the area well signed, make sure everybody understands where boundaries are, why we got to where we're at. But it comes to a point after a few years, if we're still having troubles with people straying outside boundaries or using the area, where the public demands that we enforce the regulations. And in that case, we can start laying charges ourselves, or we can lay charges based on information the public has given us. We hope to have a lot of cooperation. We have had in the past. We've had a lot of people involved with the study team, and a lot of people who are very interested in the Babines. Who probably are in there, or I know are in there a lot more than we are, and they provide valuable information. And most people are interested in protecting the resource they feel is theirs. They've been helping us out a lot.
It's safe to say the snowmobilers aren't ready to talk about boundary enforcement just yet. They still would like the boundaries in question to be removed altogether, or at least altered.
But please, I'm asking as a snowmobiler, who treasures and respects our traditional riding areas, don't take them away. They should be for everyone to enjoy, not a select few. I've heard a lot tonight about compromise, and I think compromise is good, but I don't think the snowmobilers should be doing all the compromising. Thank you.
BC Parks will accept submissions regarding the future of the Babines recreation area until March 16th, and then go through the painstaking task of coming to a conclusion on what lies ahead. What's promising for BC Parks is their preliminary work in the draft plan isn't totally being debated. There are a great number of people who think the plan has merit and is pointed in the proper direction for the future.
I believe I'm part of a public that demands a great deal of our resource planners, and I believe that BC Park has met the challenge by maintaining three very important principles in this planning process. Number one, ecological and conservation objectives are of prime importance and have been dealt with that way. Number two, human use has been seen as something that needs to fit in with those objectives, and the human use needs to be balanced. And number three, the public needs to have a fair and legitimate way of participating in the planning of how that balance of human use is decided. I think Parks has shown leadership in its suggestion of boundary extensions to include more full representation of the subboreal Skeena Mountains landscape. That has significance beyond this little valley. That's in line with the province's objectives, and in fact with the objective that we represent representative landscapes across the province. Plans to continue to protect the alpine areas, the vegetation, the critical wildlife habitat are also included in the plan, and these should continue to get top priority.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Nearly everyone enjoys music, whether by listening to it, singing, or playing an instrument. Studies have shown students who have an early musical training will develop the areas of the brain related to language and reasoning. Let us return to archives with Tim Reinhardt.
Most high school students get to hear their band now and then, but rarely get a chance like this to see individual talents highlighted. Spotlighting solo acts and duos was part of the purpose of this talent show, organized entirely by the students of Caledonia Senior Secondary.
We feel that we have some excellent individual performers here at Cal, and they don't really get the attention in the school that they deserve. They do performances and stuff outside the school and all across the province sometimes, but not too many people in Caledonia really know what's happening with those people.
In the band, you're with a whole bunch of people, and the trumpets get to sit in the back. So we're behind everybody, and up here it's just me up there. And there's a different approach, definitely. You know, it's frame of mind you got to get yourself into. So it cuts back on the nervousness and everything.
Some of these performers already have experience competing in regional and provincial events, but they'd like a chance for more exposure with their own peers.
Because your peers sometimes don't understand the music, and that's another thing that we're trying to do. We're trying to show different styles of music and speech arts that maybe normal students at Cal really haven't listened to or don't really appreciate all that much yet, and so we're trying to expand their knowledge.
Not too many people, I think, in the student body today are aware of like the talent that Caledonia puts out, besides just like the academics and that. And I think it's not even not only important for the students to see, but for the community and the Northwest in general, like to see what's coming out of Terrace and what's coming out of Caledonia.
Little child, dry your crying eyes. How can I explain?
Many students must choose between the arts and sports to dedicate their time to. Organizers of this talent show would like to take a similar event to younger kids to show them some of the possibilities if they choose music or drama.
I guess a lot of the interest in the Northwest is I guess sports is already like a firm basis, and it's already got all the teams, but I do think it's really important that the fine arts get out a lot more and that it can sort of become aware in the community, because it's nice when you can, instead of going to a basketball game, you know, coming to see what like students in Caledonia can do for musical talent, and not only musical talent, but like dramatic speech.
In the last couple of years, we've had a real problem with the younger students. They come to Caledonia, they're not really interested in the performing arts anymore. And what we want to do is make it more interesting for them, make it a little more contemporary, jazz it up a bit, give them more reason to want to spend the time, take the time to go into drama or into band. When you get to high school, the senior high, basically band or drama is an elective, and if you want to take that, you're giving up a lot of your free time.
The amount of dedication to their craft was certainly evident in many of the talent show performances. The arts must also compete with sports and other activities for funding. Caledonia students may show off their talents again like this to the general public later this school year to get them thinking about providing more financial help.
We're having a hard time getting funding and whatever. The sports are getting a lot of funding, so it's our time to show what we can do and convince people for some more funding.
The Caledonia Band is raising money to travel to Seattle. Just like athletes, musicians learn from playing to new audiences.
The music festival is the goal for the year, but afterwards you need something to keep everyone going until the end of the year, and the band trip is.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
An accident can change a person's life, leaving them in pain and mental health concerns, as well as taking a toll on their relationships, family, and work life. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives with Sebastian.
I got hurt logging, and I decided to try my hand at Indian art.
What about training? Are you self-taught, or did you go to school?
I went to Kazan for 3 years for designing and beginner's course and advanced. And I was more or less self-taught, and a lot of, as I got into Indian art, I was more or less self-taught myself. Different ways of carving.
The ceremonial mace is, of course, already in the hands of the university, but Sebastian hasn't stopped there. 2 mason's chairs are currently in the works. However, it is the symbolic talking stick that begins the true reflection of native Northwest culture.
The old chiefs have talking sticks years back. And there was different sizes of talking sticks, eh? There'd be 2-foot talking stick, 3-foot, 4-foot, 6 feet.
What did the larger or the longer stick imply more importance?
More designs. Like the longer stick would be used for inviting different chiefs to potlatches. And the shorter stick would be used more into the chief seat type.
Sebastian earned the right to produce the works for UNBC after submitting a proposal. He has ensured tradition plays a prominent role in the end product.
A lot of people do like the modern Northwest Coast design, and then again, a lot of them do like the tradition way of doing it.
Are you a traditionalist?
Yeah, I have pretty well keep to it. You figure out the way the artists years back do their shapes and what they were trying to accomplish those days, that you could see once you become an Indian artist, that you can see what they were trying to accomplish with their designs. Like, for instance, your ovoids here, and your inner ovoids, and your S shape, and you come into your L shape, and your circles.
Sebastian's assignment for the university has been a learning experience as well. Although starting carving in the early 1970s and maintaining older styles, Sebastian was struck with including native crests from all bands throughout northern BC. Discovering those crests and meanings and putting them to art proved to be a difficult task.
It did. There's a lot of crests that I didn't realize that we did have crests that are lost. That came up in, on some of the designs that I'm doing.
The moose you mentioned.
Yeah, the moose, for instance, is pretty well a lost crest.
So where did you, I guess, find it again to include it here?
Apparently one of the ladies from the university put that in a note that there is a moose crest, and then that I should put it on the chair.
And then how did you find out how to do it, or did you have to create it?
I created the design, or to look like similar to a moose, a bull moose.
The native crests are just part of Sebastian's design. Here he works on the mason's chairs and explains the overall design and how its enormous size is important.
Yeah, you measure it out and you figure out the balance of it. Most important, for instance, on these throne type chairs, the balance of the design is going to make a difference.
How do you do, in your mind, how do you take the design for a piece of jewelry and then make that interesting so people can understand it visually, and then think about the same thing on a huge panel and still make it interesting visually?
They both as I think of it, they both seem like they're small or big. They're still the same designs. The size came from more or less on my own. How we came about the size of this was chiefs used to sit on the floor, on chief chairs, and so we decided to do a chair that would more or less look like a throne type chair. So this is what I came up with.
What would a Northwest carver and artist be without his or her favorite wood to work with? Sebastian outlines why he has chosen this particular variety.
This is red cedar, laminated red cedar. You can see the different quality of a different grain, like white grain into a red grain.
Is this a nice wood to be working in?
Yeah, this is, it's not that easy to carve with this wood here. But it's the best wood that, for the project that I'm doing.
The best wood for the finished product, you mean?
Yeah, the finished product, and I chose it because it would stand up for years and years.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but a connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.